I'm going to showcase my fixturing table that I made in 2018. I wanted somewhere to have a permanent space to mock things up and clamp things down. And I incorporated the tops of my two snap-on vintage KRA toolboxes into it. Works out fairly well. There's actually catch pans that I put underneath. I made a little track with angle iron and bent up some catch pans, and that way sparks and debris and what have you from the fixturing holes don't fall through into the toolbox tops. So it's a pretty simple design. I looked on the internet, but couldn't really find anything that I liked, so I just drew up what I wanted. I wanted something that was going to be big but not enormous, right? Because I still wanted the ability to move it out of the way, walk around it, but big enough to work. So it came out to right around 3 by 7, I guess is the best way to describe it. A little over 3 feet, a little over 7, but not a 4 by 8. And that's just because I wanted room for my vehicles to be parked, room to walk around on both sides, yet movable. So how did I construct it? It's simple. Just 3 by 3 square tubing. Had some left over from an actual bumper project, and the 4 pieces worked out perfectly to make the legs. It's 3/16 wall, and then I went with 2-inch with regular 1/8 wall. So I just formed a box. So the way that I welded it up, it's tough when you don't have a bench and you're doing everything off the floor. You know, I've got a welding table over here that I made, an 8-foot bench. But I welded up the legs, got them square, made great big long pieces. And then when I was satisfied that they were right, then I welded them to each other this way. And that took 2 days. I mean, welding the legs up to each other and then welding them as a box took some time. Because you kind of want to have it square and right. And I still screwed it up. It still wasn't perfect. Like, this is no ultra professional build table like you'd buy and pay 15-20 grand for. So I got the frame welded up. I knew that I wanted the toolboxes inside, so I put some angle iron joist underneath. Just something simple here if you want to see what that looks like. Nothing too fancy. So the toolboxes had somewhere to sit. I left enough room in the corners for ArmorX cable. Brought an electrician in, flipped the thing upside down and on its side. Electrician wired up quad, 4 boxes, one in each corner. Made a divider so that the toolboxes would be on one side and then general storage in the other, And then I thought, well, I might build a rack or something in here one day, so I put in some angle iron above and below so I could have somewhere to bolt something for future proofing. And then the big thing is the top. The top is 1/2-inch steel. So what I did was I went to a local steel supplier and laser cut manufacturing facility. Like they make parts out of laser cutting for all the big ag producers and stuff. So I had them provide the steel and cut it to size of what I wanted. But what I had them do was I told them what I was doing. I wanted a fixturing table. Now, there was a lot of debate in my mind about how to do this, and I decided that I wanted to just make my own fixtures and not be having to buy anything or figure out expensive button bolts. So I decided to just tap the holes. So I didn't want anything too big. They're 3/8 bolts, but I had the laser guys burn little marks. So they laid out the grid and sent me the PDF drawing to see. I figured out that there was 180 holes. You know, I didn't have them go right to the edge because I figured I can clamp to the edge and have an overhang. Got an overhang on each side, right? And then what I decided to do was drill and countersink and bolt the 1/2-inch top to the frame. So it's bolted all 4 corners, and then it's bolted in the middle. So I had them lay out the grid and figure out where I wanted the holes and how many of them. So then I had to drill all the holes because they weren't going to burn them for me. I asked them if they could burn the hole, and they said no, their laser wouldn't go. They wouldn't burn that many holes that small. So they just burned a little mark, basically like a punch mark, the laser did. And then I went with a center punch, and I center punched each one again to make it bigger. And then I took to drilling 180 holes on the table, and I did it with just with a mag drill. I've got a mag drill, Milwaukee mag drill. My business actually had it for some other things. So the Milwaukee mag drill made short work of drilling the holes. It took about 2 weekends. 90 holes on one Saturday, 90 holes on another. And then I tapped them. I ended up getting a fluted tap, which broke at exactly the midway point. That's what this is. I had to cut it out, weld it back in, re-drill, re-tap. So then I tapped 90 holes. Now to make it straight, like the mag drill drilled the holes straight, but to tap straight, I ended up buying these tap alignment guides. I don't know if I can get this open with one hand. But these help you keep your tap perfectly square to the table. So just put this in, put your tap through it, and then you're not wobbling and you're not on an angle, right? So I tapped 180, and it's been good ever since. So, I left the table square in the corners, and that way you can use the table to square off and set up your jig. So if you want to put 2 pieces in at a right angle, I made a whole bunch of fixtures. So I've got table stops, and I just grab a bolt and I can bolt everything down. I can square this up, and the holes stay clean. Like if you want to get the threads cleaned out, I've got a little chaser that I made. But you square this up, you got table stops, and then what I've done is I've done clamps that just bolt in, just TIG weld on a bolt. I know it's not perfect zero clearance, but it's a $6 clamp, and then I weld it on. You can't beat it for the price. So over the years, I've made shims for shimming pieces. So if you got pieces that you need to be 1/8 higher or lower, 1/4 inch, 3/16 quarter, 3/8, 1/2 inch. I've made some bridging for the clamps, different kinds of stops, different kinds of bolts. And honestly, I've not found a situation that I couldn't work with. Like when you need something different, I've got like 90s over here. You want to have a perfect 90. I've made some 90s. They bolt onto the table. Okay, you just find a hole, tighten it down, and then your next piece coming in can be put on, clamp to it, and away you go. So no longer working off the ground. The table is pretty close to being flat. There's a little bit of a wobble in this area. It's not quite perfectly true, but it's easily 1,000 times better with anything that I've ever had in my life. And I've been able to construct frames and grids, and it really is nice to be able to weld something with accuracy. Like if you're doing piece repeating, where you're gonna do, shelves or something like that, where you're gonna make the same shelf 5 or 6 times, you can set up your jigs, square the pieces up, tack them all up in the jigs, take them out, stack them all up, and then come back and weld them. And each one is, in theory, really exactly the same. So yeah, it's way better than working with the floor. And then I've still got this table here, and things work out well. I have occasionally welded to the table, welded down something and then ground it off in order to hold. This one, if I need something to the table, if I can't do it with the clamps or do it with the magnets, then I'll make a jig for it and, just do jigs as needed kind of thing. So there you go. You can do it. I think all in, the tabletop here is 580 pounds. And then the frame underneath is probably 2 and change. But, with toolboxes, tools in everything, I'm guessing that this puppy's sitting at about 1,200 pounds. Oh, I forgot the casters. I went and got 2-way lockings, so when the lock is on, it won't spin and then won't roll. So this table is absolutely secure. And I picked a fairly level spot in the floor. Like I put my levels down, and it's not bad. Like if you grab this and throw it down, that's as level as my cement floor can make it. And that's as level as I was able to make the table at the time of construction. So, yeah, I figure it weighs 1,200 pounds, so it doesn't move anywhere. And let's see, I had $750 into the top. And the rest of the materials weren't all that expensive. Maybe $200-300 in steel casters. Casters are the most expensive. I think they were like $30-35 a piece. So yeah, not a heck of a lot of money. 1,000, under $2,000, that's for sure. And then make my own fixturing. So you can do the same, set it up how you want. I'll never look back. I don't know if I ever was to move. I don't know if I'd take it with me or if I just build another one. It's kind of a big piece. I will undo the casters and move it around, like if I want. Oh, and to electrify it, being in the middle of the table, I had already knew I was going to do an island, so I had the electrician put a floor plug in my cement floor, and he had never heard of anything like that before. I basically had to force him to do it. He didn't want to do it. Put a floor in the plug in the concrete floor. Like this just comes out and closes up. And so then what I do is that's how I electrify the table, right? Just have that under the table and you really don't kick into it. So there's no extension cords or anything hanging down to electrify my table. So a little bit of forward thinking. I knew I was going to put an island of some kind in my garage. So there you go. I think that just about covers it. You can do it on yours. Don't have to spend a lot to get a lot. Catch you on the next video.